All right, this is jpeg2RAW image review, and tonight we have A.D Wheeler, the fabulous A.D Wheeler coming on. This is our initial show, and here at jpeg2RAW, we always love, the goal of jpeg2RAW really was to give back to photographers, to help photographers learn and grow. And A.D has been gracious enough for the last 2 years, I believe it is, to be our reviewer, our celebrity reviewer, or our professional reviewer, whatever, reviewer for our year-end photo contest, and the information he gives is invaluable. And for AD, I think we're on like number 48 or 49, the 48th or 49th month of jpeg2RAW having a monthly photo contest. And they're great to enter. They're fun to enter. You know, people love seeing their image up on our Facebook page and, you know, other places we put it out. But I started thinking the other day, you know, a way to help us grow, both as a reviewer for me and contributor for other people and myself, to help us grow rather than just putting photos in there, is to get some professional feedback. You know, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? What should we consider? And, you know, and from someone who is going to give it from a position of trying to help out. You know, anybody receiving critique, sometimes, you know, we can be thin-skinned, and sometimes the reviewer, the critiquer, can be a little bit harsh. But coming from someone who's really trying to help the other person learn and grow the photography is really valuable. And I know you do that professionally in the Arcanum. You help out a lot of people there, and we really appreciate you spending some time with us to do this. We're going to try and do it once a month as your time is available. We have the contest once a month. And, you know, hopefully the people who have entered photos and get this critique will see it that way, and it'll help them grow. And others, even if you didn't enter one, seeing another photo critiqued and seeing it from your point of view and what you would do, what you like about it, what you don't like about it, would be really helpful to a lot of us. So thank you,
Awesome.
AD.
Oh, you're welcome. And thank you for having me. I mean, this is a great opportunity to hang out. And every time I get to be on the show or hang out with you is always fun. And yeah, so I'm happy to do it. And one of the things that makes the Arcanum so successful is this critique that we do and the way that we do it based upon a little bit of feedback, so to speak, from the photographer. And I just wanted to touch on that just a little bit, because tonight we're going to we don't really have that tonight, this first time through. We're kind of feeling our way, right? We're trying to maximize the value here for everybody. So what we look for generally is, along with your image, to include what we call a goal in taking the image and then a goal in processing. So not to scare anybody, because I don't pre-prepare my images. I will pick a place to go. I go there, and then whatever inspires me makes me pull the trigger. So that's the information that we want to hear from you. What made you pull the shutter button? What made you take that photo? That's what I need to know from you. And then, why did you send it in to the contest? Did you process it a certain way? Did you have questions about it? Are you not sure about it? Are you like, this is my best image ever, and I just want to see what you think about it? That's the kind of information that I can use. And then, instead of giving you my opinion, I'm giving you a path, and I'm opening up a pathway to your creativeness to get to that point, to help you get there. And that helps other people when they hear that and they see that beginning section and then what I say and then the ending section. That helps other people who don't even submit. So that's, I think if I'm right, what we've talked about, Mike, is that's kind of the goal we're going for, right?
Yeah, no, that's great. And you know, I was looking at the page, so you can submit your images into our Facebook, our monthly contest, two ways: through our Facebook group, which is facebook.com/group/jpeg2RAW, or our webpage. And the forum I was looking at just before we went live tonight, our webpage has no avenue for people to submit that kind of information. So like, I've got to go change that when we're done here tonight. Because even if someone had wanted to, they could not submit that up until now. So we'll be changing that and giving people the opportunity to do that.
Awesome.
Yep. Well, you want to... anything we need to talk about before we start heading into some of the images?
Well, no, just want to reiterate, tonight's going to be, I'm going to offer up my just honest opinion on hopefully giving you ideas for creativity. And since I don't have those goals, remember, just my opinion. So like Mike said, keep your thick skin on. I'll try not to be extremely harsh because I don't have a goal. So it's kind of tough for me to be harsh when I don't have that, unless I was being mean, and I definitely won't be that. So
I do have one thing before we start, and if you go over to your page, which is the explorographer.com, yeah, the
Yes.
explorographer.com, and I'll put that link on our Facebook page and other posts too. You have a store over there. You have several products over there, and what we're going to do, jpeg2RAW is going to once a month at random, not the winner, because the winner gets other things. It could be the winner. We're going to randomly pick somebody. We'll do that live tonight. We'll randomly pick one of the images tonight, and jpeg2RAW is going to buy, for this month, we're going to buy the Premium Lightroom Preset Pack.
Ooh.
What do you think of that,
Yes.
AD?
40 presets. That's awesome. 40 presets. Yep. And stuff that I use every day. And so, yeah, I've made them available in my store.
We'll buy that this month. We may move around, buy some different things in different months, but that is the first one. We'll pick somebody at random later on tonight as we move through the show.
Cool.
Yeah, we thank you for having those things out there. You have quite a few items out there people can go buy, and this is another great benefit of entering the contest.
Very cool.
All right, you want to move to our first photo, number 1. And again, anybody who watches the main show knows that I'm horrible with names. So, and some of these names are names that are going to be impossible for me to name. So, if you see your image up here, you know your name. All right.
Yeah. So good luck.
Yeah. Number 1, I will try Bayardine. I know I got it wrong, but that's what I'm going to say. And right. It is what are those little? It's those little white flower things that you can blow on, and I think that the petals fly away.
Yeah, dandelions.
Is that what that is?
Yeah, the little dandelions before they turn into their evil little yellow flowers that go everywhere. Yep.
And he's got them sideways in a real soft focus.
Yeah, it looks like this was shot like with a very shallow depth of field. I really like that a lot, and a beautiful soft image, very wonderfully processed. It's the color and tones, those contrasting tones of the dark browns with the blues. Excellent choice there for an image like this. That really just totally lends to the softness and the kind of warmth. The thing that I focus on with this image is the single drop of water. And like any portrait photographer, I will tell you to get that single drop of water out of the middle. You're going to want to put that in the thirds. You're going to want to move that out of the dead center, because what it's doing, unfortunately, is it's giving me a target, and I can't enjoy the image. I'm focused on this target of this little droplet of water. I would move that probably to the lower thirds, either on the left or the right, and open up the frame just a little bit more with a little bit more negative space. I think that this has got like an L of negative space in it there on the right. Yeah. And then it looks like it might have, I can't tell if it was taken on something that was like a mirrored thing, or if it was just another one that was down below that was a little darker. So I'm a little kind of torn between that. If it was laid like on a black acrylic, and they had the reflection going on at the bottom. But generally, when you have negative space, you're going to want to make it either a large negative space that pushes us towards one side of the image or towards a focal point in the image. So here it's we have a negative space in the lower left, and then we have another negative space in the upper right and to the lower right as well.
Yeah. That L. I see the L.
Yeah, and so the thirds where we're and I don't want to harp on the thirds, because there's times when we can break that symmetry up and not go with thirds, such as a square crop, which would work for an image like this. Squaring this crop up and making it more about the stems and shortening the stems a little bit, and more about the softness in that drop. You could put the drop in the middle if you made this a square crop. So that's something to think about as well. But it's just a little unbalanced for me with the negative space where it's at. But other than that, I mean, a gorgeous image. And I think that something as simple as a crop is all that's needed here. Generally, when I'm grading images, if I have to grade them, we give them a 1, 2, or a 3. A 1 is an image that needs a lot of work. A 2 is an image that needs just a little something here or there, and a 3 is a portfolio worthy image. And I would give, this would be one of those images I'd give it like a 2.
Okay.
This would be a high 2. It's a very beautiful, very soft, but yeah, it just needs a crop. It's not quite, the composition is not quite there yet.
Okay. All right, number 2 from Bev Nelson Robinson.
My screen didn't change automatically. Why is that, Mike? I had to change it myself.
Yeah, so some of the production quality is not working tonight very well.
Well, we have our challenges. So this is a classic image, right? The tulips, and they're gorgeous. The light here is absolutely gorgeous. The processing is, again, a beautiful soft image with the tones being very complementary to each other. Beautiful backlit. And almost like sun rays coming down. I love that. The bokeh in the back is beautiful. Mm-hmm. It is a thing, though, with flower compositions that we try to go with odd numbers. So we almost have an odd number of flowers here, and I know you guys can't see what I'm pointing at. So this is I'm going to try to explain it. But we have the tulip on the left, the tulip on the right, and then I look for something of either similar shape or focus, or similar color. So we have the one up here on the that's above the one on the left. We have that kind of bokeh'd out quite a bit in the back, and that doesn't really count. We really need to have 3 images there, that 3 flowers that are kind of working together. And they give you a frame for the image. And so that we usually, when we're doing flower portraits, we try to stay away from just 2. Now, with that said, there are times to break that rule, and this one almost breaks that rule because it almost looks like 2 flower people holding hands.
Yeah, I didn't see that at first.
Right?
Yeah.
If the leaves were kind of closer, I would have gone in that direction and got that story. It kind of looks, because the one leaf is cut off and we're not quite seeing it. So maybe that's something to think about for a creative shot, right? Is to set that up and shoot something like that where the flowers are looking over the garden like that. They're just happy to be there or something. But it's a beautiful image, and the color, whatever time of day you went, make sure you go back there and you get more of this, and play around with the composition. Again, mostly for the images that I see, it's just the storytelling and the composition, which is always hard, in something we all work on. Even me today still, as much as I've shot, we were just talking with somebody in my Lightroom catalog, just topped 250,000,
wow.
250,000 photos. And it's just, even now, I still take images where I get them home and I go, what was I thinking? I just I had it was there, and I didn't compose it. Like the story, I missed it, and it just happens. So, something to do. We practice as photographers to get better, and
absolutely.
And that would be my suggestion. Again, another 2-point something image here, very close to a portfolio. So
anything
nice.
In the cropping, we crop the right flowers a little bit cropped off. Any issues with that? Are you okay with that?
Yeah. I think without having the 3 flowers, I kind of skim over that a little bit. That's one thing that I see at a lot of photographers who are struggling with, they get the color, they got the processing, they got the camera settings, they got all of that. Then it comes down to the composition and the storytelling in the image. And I see a lot of photographers will really not give enough air to the image, like not enough space. And this feels a little tight to me. If the 2 flowers, I think it would have been if the petal from the flower on the right and the petal from the flower on the left, those were touching, so it looked like they were holding hands. I think it would be okay with the one flower kind of coming in from the side. I think that would have been all right.
Okay.
But yeah, I think that, you do kind of need to give a little bit more space with your portraits. Anybody shooting portraits out there, always remember that if people buy your images, they want to matte them. And if they matte them, the matter is going to need like a half an inch. And
good point, yeah.
If you go and matte an image, you're going to lose a half an inch. So always give yourself at least that space. Always shoot with the intent we're going to sell 1 million copies. Right?
Exactly.
That's what the whole idea is. Right?
Or you're going to print it yourself.
Or you can print it yourself, which is an amazing experience. If you haven't done it, do it. Print is just another thing. If you haven't printed your images, go to a printer or do it yourself, and it's something to see it tangible in your hands is just amazing.
Yeah, and I love to print them big, like this one back here of my son when he was younger. I love to print them big.
I hear you. I've got, the big ones behind me. I've got a couple of 24 by 36s here. And then the one you guys can't see is the skyline of the Freedom Tower in New York. It was taken on Frank Sinatra's birthday, and it is a 60 by 40. So it's a big, giant metal print that I still get cold every time I look at it because it was 26 degrees when I was there. But
wow.
Yeah, but printing at any size is just amazing to see your work actually being torn off the digital and put on paper. It's just something about it.
All right, let's go to number 3, and that is Chris McCaney.
Chris McCaney. All right. So we have a sunset image here over a river. Nice composition, a little bit of campgrounds going on there to the right. A little bit of waterfalls kind of leading us over to that point. It's a beautiful image. I think it's a little heavy on the HDR processing a little bit. I'm seeing a little bit of kind of. So what happens with HDR when we start to push the levels a little bit too much is we end up getting not. This is hard to explain because you don't want to say the wrong words to make people feel bad about their image because that's not the point. But what happens in water is it gets kind of grungy, or it gets, and that's a horrible word, and I hate that because this is not a grungy image. Mm-hmm. But it gets noisy. Water gets rough, and it doesn't have that smooth quality that we think of in water. So you got to be real careful when you're processing your HDR. I really highly suggest anybody who's working out there get Lightroom and start processing with Photomatics in 32-bit RAW, which is the best way to process your HDR if you're going to do HDR. And you're going to be able to capture a lot of light with not a lot of grunge. The images come out very natural. And then once you have a natural kind of raw negative to work with, then you can go ahead and start in on your processing of the sunset and all of that. I see quite a few chromatic aberrations in the upper right-hand corner on the trees there from the contrast difference. That's going to happen with certain lenses. Right. So just be very careful, especially if that anything moves, obviously, in an HDR. But I think it's a great image. I love the composition here. I like the story that's being told of the camp going on, and I can tell that's all there, and the river winding around. There's a little bit more going on that I see over on the left now that I look at the image and kind of trace around it a little bit. I would probably clone some of that out. It looks like there's a campfire going on down there. I don't think that that's a point of interest. I think your story here is that somebody's camping next to the river, and that's right in your thirds. And I would hate to draw anybody's eye away from that. We want to draw to that, from down the river to that. And you have two leading lines. You have the curve of the river, you have the clouds kind of coming out that way, and then you have the line of the rapids kind of pointing across towards that as well. So keep the story right there. A good tip for all photographers out there is don't try to put too much or too many stories in one image. I see a lot of images out there that have 15 images within them. And I could take and make 15 more photos out of the wonderful things that they've caught. They got to kind of narrow it down a little bit and make sure that story is really like a home run story. It's really being told strongly. And that the only way we can do that is by minimizing the amount of elements that we put in a particular image.
So generally one main story?
I usually try to have one focus. But this is where we get into, right, the point where we need to hear from the photographer. Yeah. Maybe he's trying to tell me that, I'm showing camping along the river. And then I would have a different set of feedback for that, because I would say, well, you need to try some different things because now the campsites are too far apart. And so if you're trying to show just this lazy summer camping on the river, I would need to see more people camping. So maybe going at a different time, showing some more people in the image, kind of, portraying that, making that part of the story stronger. So I'm just going off kind of what I would do with what I have here in front of me.
Sure.
I think cloning out the other fire going on, because I can see that. I'd probably use an adjustment brush and take the bluing out, which happens from the smoke down there. That's also, I will tell you, that bluing happens from your vibrancy, and you can take a lot of that oversaturation and that effect away from an image by just pulling your vibrance back a little bit. When you do images in HDR or you start pushing the sliders in Lightroom, what'll happen is the blacks will start turning blue, and you stop losing the blacks in your image, which really lend to the impact. So you want to be very careful of that. So it's a great image. I think it's just, again, good composition here. That's a good plus. Just Border Patrol a little bit, and I think a little bit lighter. Remember what your main story is here. Is it your sunset? Is your campers? And then process for that effect. So.
All right. Very good. Thank you. All right. Next up is Daryl Harrington. And this is a busy, looks like a bridge. And
we're on the Brooklyn Bridge, and this is a long exposure in New York, looking at the Freedom Tower. This is just outside of Dumbo down there. I've shot at this location many, many times. And it's a beautiful long exposure image at night. I love night images. It's something that I'm still working on. I think, I know shooting here is difficult. It looks like you got it at a pretty good time where the traffic was good, but the foot traffic wasn't that bad. Just some technical things on the image. Your buildings, we've got some leaning buildings going on. The new Lightroom has some awesome settings. I just did a Facebook Live thing on this today about straightening all of that. So I definitely would make sure that those buildings are straight. Whenever we have anything that we know, what did I call it today? I had a great thing. I called it a known vertical. Okay, so something that we see every day, like a skyscraper, we know is straight up and down. So we expect when we see one for it to be straight up and down. Whenever we get something like that and it's leaning, okay, so I can tell you were leaning out over this, but your camera was leaning as well. It would have much more impact if the image wasn't leaning. So I felt like, oh no, I'm going to fall into the traffic. And that's the thing we have to be careful of, is tension in an image where we're not portraying tension. I don't think you're portraying tension here. What I see is a bustling city. I don't see tension in that. I see vibrance in that. I see electricity in that. So I don't want to look at an image like this and feel tense at all. I want to be like, wow, feel that energy. I feel powerful. And that's, taking the lean out of the image, and making sure your verticals are straight up and down. This light that's right in front of us, the street light, I would have tried to move a little bit to maybe not put that right dead center in the foreground, because that's kind of interrupting that whole look. Now you could, with the tools that are available with Lightroom and Photoshop, you can clone that kind of stuff out. It would be a lot of work. I think it'd be easier just to move up another notch here. And that would probably take away this major pole that you have going on here as well.
Right-hand side.
Yeah. And so if by moving up, you eliminate that light and that pole, and now, you've got a cleaner image that's going to really get the point across. And it's a beautiful time of day, and the color, amazing. And a wonderful subject, and a tough shot to get. I know this is a tough shot to get. I know this is leaning out there quite a ways. And so, it's just one of those things where good practice. Now, get back there and think about those few things when you're doing this. Get this image, and you could do some work with this. You could crop this. You could bring up the lower right and crop this main pole that you have. You could crop that out of there, and that would get rid of the light as well, and then straighten the image, and you still have a very workable image here, I think. So
let me ask you one question about this. So
sure.
I might, if I came up on this, I might have just tried to get it straight down the street with that, which would have probably been the wrong decision. Do you like this better coming from a slight angle, so you're not like looking right down the middle of the street?
Oh, absolutely. I think that, so there's no crosswalk here.
Okay.
So he's leaning out over.
So he couldn't have done that even if he wanted to.
Right. Yeah. I don't think there's any crosswalk at this point. I could be wrong about that, but I don't believe that there is. But if there was, I think his leading lines are great. It's leading you into the city. It's showing this streak of light and the energy feeding in like a big main artery feeding into the city, and then the city is lighting up. I get that part of the story very well from this, and those leading lines into the third, very well done. You can go with a more 16:9 crop, by the way, in a situation like this. Your sky up above and that diagonal wire that's showing up in the middle of the frame up top.
Yep.
Crop that down low, crop up from the bottom, and make this a wider image. Straighten your buildings up. And now you're going to see when you don't use the third, so he's just inside the third, but when you use like a 16:9 crop or a 21:9 crop, which is more epic and lends to buildings and cityscapes very well, like the pano kind of look, but an epic wide look, you're going to remove the distractions, you're going to straighten your buildings, and suddenly you're going to see the power of the image just erupt at that point.
Okay. Well, AD, guess what? The live button has just come back on Facebook.
I think that's very strange.
So what we could do is either continue without live, or I can start us live, and I'll just say a little intro that, hey, we're midstream and we're on image number 5 of 14. Thanks for joining us live.
Well, I know that all the people that I told that was going to happen this today, they would love to see it live on Facebook. So if you want to do that and then give me a link, or I'll go grab it off your page and share that, I think that would be a great idea. I'm perfectly fine with doing that.
Okay. Well, it should be on our page. I'm
scared.
Title, and I'm waiting for. There it goes. So we're going to go live right now. And hopefully,
I just have to make sure I turn it off so it doesn't repeat.
Yes, we had that problem last night in pre-show.
All right.
And I'm waiting for it to go live. There we go. Okay. All right. So this is a live review with A.D Wheeler, who's reviewing the images contributed to the jpeg2RAW photo contest. Let me actually bring us over. They couldn't see us there, JD. There we go. Now they can see us. So we're on image. We just finished image number 4. We're about to go to image number 5 in the review. There's 14 of them. And so Facebook Live wasn't working at first. Now we're working, and thought we'd go ahead and cut in and let you guys be able to see hey, we're like a third through. So well, you see the second and third of this review. We've already gone over some great images. I'll tell you what, you don't have to review them again, but I'll show a couple of the images here real quick. Went over this one and I'm not going to say their names. I'll try it. Bayardine. This one with Nelson Robinson. And we just finished this one with Chris McHaney. No, I'm sorry. That was number 3. We just finished this one with Daryl Harrington.
Yes. That's we got 4 images. Woohoo!
We got 4 images. So now we're going to move on to image number 5. And this one's from Dean Stone. It's a macro, I guess, a macro of a bee on a flower.
All right, Dean. I know Dean. I think we had one of Dean's images in one of the contests at one point in time. Yes, always awesome stuff. Beautiful macro image here. And kudos for capturing the moment. I know how hard this is. We have a big garden out back, and I'm out there all the time. I am a landscape photographer, but I will go into my garden and practice chasing animals around all the time. They love it. Trust me, they love it. And I know how difficult it is to not only get these creatures in focus, but to get the moment that you want without freezing them or all of the crazy things that photographers do in order to do this. And I'm a big proponent of not doing that, of just capturing them as they go about their business, which I think I really like the challenge of it personally. And you've done an excellent job here with this image. I'm very, I really have very little to say negatively about it. I think it's well composed. It tells the proper story. You have just the right amount of things in focus. There's no question here. So I think this is a great image. Like I said before we started, you get a 1 image is an image that needs some work. A number 2 image would be something that needs maybe one thing changed in it. We've already gone through I think first 4 images were all 2s. I mean, it was beautiful. And I would give this, I would say this image is a 3 image. I really think this is something that, if Dean is focusing on macro, this is a really good step in the right direction. The eyes are in focus. We can see all sorts of little hairs and things going on.
I love the color.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just bursting. And I've actually seen these bees in action, and they are this brilliant and this bright. So I really like the impact of the color and right choice on focal length and everything here. Just a beautiful image coming together really well. I would highly suggest just as something to try. if you're not doing it already, but using a flash when you're doing macro photography like this can really make the eyes and the overall insect itself really pop and give you that an off-camera flash that you just hold off to the side. I know, one more thing to do, right? One camera in one hand, but it really. I got an Orbis ring, which they're no longer making anymore. I got one of those things, and I haven't used it this summer yet. But I am so I can't wait to get out there and use this thing, because a flash makes all the difference, because you can just. You don't have to wait for bright light. That's always cool. It's diffused, so you use like a little softbox on it, but it just gives you so much more context. And he may have used a flash with this. I can't tell. But if he didn't, definitely something to experiment with. And focus stacking as well. You have to watch Don Komarechka's show for the whole focus stacking thing. But that usually requires an insect that doesn't move. Yeah. And I don't really, personally, I know Don doesn't either. That as far as insects go, I think this is why he shoots. He likes the snowflakes, because they don't move once he captures them. But the only way to really do insects that way is to freeze them with a can of air and get them cold so they can't move. Now, it doesn't kill the insect, but I'm sure it's not pleasant. So I've never been a real proponent of doing that. I like to just try to grab them like this, which I think is totally awesome. So excellent work, Dean. Very nice.
With flash, don't you have to be very careful that you don't overpower the flash? You don't want the image to look flashed. Yeah.
Exactly. You use it as a fill, and that's where the art of using the flash off camera and with a little remote, like you have a little remote and you hold the flash in one hand and the camera in the other, and you kind of trigger it off from the side. There are beautiful tutorials out there on how to do it, and it's a whole art form. You get, two flashes going, you get somebody to help you with it, and it's a pretty cool project.
Very good, very good. All right, we're going to move on to number 6 here. This is from Debbie Henry, and it's a white bird, like a crane or something, flying across the water.
Yeah, amazing. Technically amazing image. It looks like there was a little bit of post-processing here to blur out some things in the image. I guess I would probably ask, instead of the blurring effect that you have here, which is okay, a tendency for when I look at an image like this, it feels like there may have been a fence that she was shooting over. Sometimes when we shoot at long focal length, and you have talked about this when you're shooting sports and you shoot through a fence at 2.8, you get that kind of soft edge, right? When you shoot through the fence. And so I get that feeling with this. I think it's a neat effect, but if you're going to go that route, I think it would minimize all of that stuff that we have up at the top in this image. There's no question here that the bird is the story of the image. So why not crop this a little bit, put the bird in the third, and go with a traditional crop here on this. Make it super over the top powerful. Get rid of the extra detritus that you have at the top, the docks, and there's a couple of boats up there. And I get the blurring out of trying to remove them, but go a little bit further here and just totally eliminate them altogether. Do some cloning, get them out of there. Make it about the bird over the water, because you captured the bird is just so sharp and so in focus. And I'm zooming in on this, and it just looks absolutely gorgeous. Mm-hmm. So you've done this wonderful job. Your white balance and your technical abilities here are great. I think it comes down to just the creativeness. You can still do that effect. I think that's fine, but I would make sure that get the bird out of the middle. You folks are shooting birds, insects, flowers, people. Get them out of the middle.
To me, it actually seems a little bit to the right of the middle, which, since it's flying that way, I start to feel like I'm starting to get a little bit pushed that way. So I'd like to see it in the lower left hand, the left-hand thirds.
Yeah, you could put it in the lower left hand and give the negative space where it's going. That would make the most sense for the story. And she may have other images of this bird. I'm sure this wasn't a one-off shot. Generally, when you shoot birds like this, you're riddling off a few frames along the way. So if you do have one where I believe this is a heron or a crane, if you have it in the over in the lower left, where like Mike suggests, take care of the distractions around it. Just make it about the bird over the water, because it's a fantastic shot. And that you're going to see the power in that when you reduce it to the bird and the water and the negative space, those three basic elements, you're going to be like, wow. there it is. I think you'll see it immediately. And Mike and I were talking. So when we do these again, I'm going to be offering up small processing like things. So where I'll actually show you what the crop looks like, and instantaneously you'll be able to see like the difference.
That is going to be absolutely amazing when we do that.
Yeah,
I'm so looking forward to that one. All right, let's move on to the next one. Another name you're probably going to remember seeing is Gina Perry.
Yay, Gina. Gina won, didn't she?
She has won before. She's been a finalist many times. Yeah, she's
awesome.
Yep.
A beautiful image here. I'll try to keep these rolling as best I can. Flower images, always difficult. I treat them like they're portraits, and like an image like this, I would love to see this in a portrait. I always think of flowers as people. I don't know why. Something probably wrong with me in my head somewhere. It's the runaway creative part of me. And I think if you do that with this particular image, if you did put this in a portrait mode and shoot this, in a portrait shot, then that takes care of those leaves that are on the right. So what I have now is I have this beautiful bokeh, I have a beautiful rose, and then I got these photo bombers on the right. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 leaves that are kind of just going, hey, we're over here. You see us? You see us? We're right here. You like us? We're right here. And no, we don't like you. And we don't care about you. We like the rose.
Right.
So we don't want that distraction. So in this case, going with a portrait would probably give you more space above that you could deal with, where it's the negative. Again, simple, right? It's the flower in the third in the negative space with a nice bokeh background. You've got a powerful image. Here we've got 2 things struggling in the image. The bud is fine. That's okay there. I usually like to see, again, 3 objects. So 2 buds in a flower would be good. It's very it's unsettling to most viewers to see 2 I don't know what it is, but to see just 2 things, it's like they compete with each other. And when there's 3, there's like this triangle of balance. So, and then you put the leaves in there, and now we've got the leaves competing for the other side of the frame. Anytime we have something like that high contrast off to the side of the frame, it pulls our eye that way. We don't want to go over there. We want to see this flower, and it's very powerful. The flower is very powerful, but the leaves still get in there, and I'm sitting here monitoring my eyes right now, and I keep looking. I'll tell you what I'm looking at. I'm looking at this leaf on the right that has a little speck on it. Yeah. I don't know why, but my face still goes over there constantly. You don't want that. To bring out the big story and the big power, you want just that flower to be kind of ruling it. Now, processing and light, though, oh, amazing. Beautiful.
So obviously I'm not the pro here. I'm not so my feedback is of limited use here. For me, though, the green stuff, other than that little speck you mentioned, doesn't bother me. It's more the bud, the bud, and that red spot before the bud. To me, there's something about this kind of rose and this color and whatever. It seems very feminine to me. And I want my eye to go straight to that, but I keep getting pulled down to the left with that bud and that red spot.
Yeah, so that's the 2 things that are competing. So I would challenge to say that probably the red spot and the bud are working together. They're kind of, in cahoots with each other, and they're actually pulling you down to the corner because they're competing with the rose. So in this image, we have the leaves on the right that are competing. We have the bud that's competing, and then we have the little, the kind of ghostly bud that's down there in the corner. All of that stuff is a distraction really away from the main part of the story. Think about how this rose would look if it was on a bed of just the green. It was just the rose on the green is going to be like boom. So
and just I don't want to spend too much more time on this one, but
sure.
You come across this scene, you got the flower there without breaking the bud, which you really don't want to do.
No.
What is your options here to move that stuff out of the way? Do you just look for another flower?
Oh, no. Roses are very flexible and very okay to lightly. I mean, you're talking about moving that less than 4 inches out of her frame. So, whether or not you have a stick that you can lean up against it for a minute just to pull things away, or if this is someone else's property, so you're in a public garden or something like that, by no means don't move anything. I would not. That would just be me. I would try to find a different angle or a different composition. Maybe bring your aperture up a little bit and maybe get that other bud in there and kind of balance it out with the flower and the 2 buds. Now you've got that element of 3 going on. Or find another. There looks like there's a lot of more roses there that you might be able to find one that's a little bit more singled out.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to number 8 by Kim Fern. And let me, before you go into it, I'll just add my thing. One of the things I tell beginners to do, the number one tip I tell beginners is get down to your subject level. Mm-hmm. You're shooting babies, don't do it from 6 feet above them or whatever your height is. Get down to the baby level or the dog level or whatever. And so from the start, Kim has started with getting down to that right level.
Yeah, absolutely. So a little thing about levels and about angles. So anytime we are in a low angle and looking either straight at or up at a subject, straight at is more matter of fact. So there's no childlike view and there's no adult view. Basically, what we're doing is we're nullifying the overall view. We're getting at the level of the subject, which is fine. That puts us in their world, right? So we're in this dog's world. That's cool. That's perfect for this image. We wouldn't want to be in the grass looking up at this dog, thinking this dog is going to bite us and make the dog larger than life. And we don't want to be looking down at it, like Mike said, because that's basically going to make the dog seem small and unimportant. And that's not what she's doing here. She's doing obviously doing a dog portrait for a customer, I would bet, or her own dog. I like this image. It's nice and clear. Technically, it's awesome. Color is perfect. It goes to, I know working with animals is a fine art form, and very difficult, almost as bad as working with kids, which I've done both, and it's very difficult. And that's why I'm a landscape shooter, because I can only take so much. But in a shot like this, where you're maybe doing this for a customer, the ball is okay. I would like to see the dog on the left and the ball on the right, because the dog is turned to his left. So I would like to see the ball on his left as well. So he's kind of like, it's my ball. Yeah. Right now, he's kind of like looking away, like he's distracted, and the ball isn't that important to him right now. That's what this kind of portrays. He's like, oh, look, squirrel. That's what it kind of looks like. Now, if that was her story, again, we'd have a different, right? I'd say, you did it. That's awesome. Perfect. You got the whole squirrel look. Mm-hmm. With that, that's just on the composition and the way the dog is arranged. Remove the hose in the back, which I can see clearly. Remove the branch in the back. These are all very simple things to do. It takes under 10 seconds in Photoshop. And you can learn how to do it on YouTube. Super simple. And remove the feather. I don't think any of those parts of this really lend to this image. And then I think I would probably, if I was composing this, I would move more to the right and get that tree right out of the middle and balance that big tree in the background with the dog on the left, the ball more towards the center. Okay. And then what you're doing is get the dog and the ball out of the center of the image. Because what you do when you do that is you just make really the outsides of the image are inconsequential. They don't balance and they don't lend to the image. They're just there. And so when we move our subject to one side or the other, we play off the negative space, which helps the power of the image. So if you could imagine moving the dog to where the ball is, moving the ball to where the dog is, moving them both to the left, and then having that offset by the tree, dogs and trees, all tells a story there in the grass at this level. Then you have a super powerful image. And that's just part of that creative storytelling with an already awesome subject and well shot. I mean, it's just, it's blazingly clear. So you've got the technical stuff. Again, it comes right down to that storytelling and composition thing, which is, all I can tell people is, it's one of those things people are like, how do I learn? How do I learn composition? I don't get it. I know to put things on thirds and blah, 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 but then they don't come out the way I want to. You know what it is? It's you need to just go out and try something different every time. Just keep trying something different. And when you go home to process those photos, one of those things is going to go boom right in your face. And then you're going to be like, whoa, what did I do here that's different? Right. And you'll figure it out. It'll come to you and then you'll start repeating that process. And sooner or later, the storytelling comes very easy to you.
You know, Mitch, who's studying under you in Arcana, Mitch Russo, was on our show last night, and he said that. He said that he would go out and just shoot, come back, and it would be, at first, he was like, oh, this is all junk. And then, and then eventually he started, oh, this one, I like this one. And from shooting a lot and coming back and reviewing them, he figured out what was working for him and just kept on improving that.
Yeah, if you go to YouTube, everybody right now, don't stop watching us after we get done. As soon as we get done, go to YouTube and type in John Free. Okay, just look up John Free's videos, and he's going to tell you one beautiful piece of information that I don't think we've mentioned on this show. Photographers have to practice. You have to practice. Okay, we're not doing film anymore. Okay, it's not the days where it costs a lot of money to practice when you did film, right? And a lot of time. Today we're on digital. Practice. Go click that shutter. That's what you do. And go out there and don't go out. The biggest mistake I see photographers do, they grab a camera, they go out and they start taking photos, and they're like, they get upset. They're like, oh, this one didn't come out. That one didn't come out. You're practicing. They're not going to come out. That's how it works. Right. So yeah, it's really important that we remind ourselves we're practicing. And you know what? You're going to always practice. You're going to practice for the rest of your life. That's the whole idea.
And I'm going to quote Mitch again. I'm going to quote Mitch again. I don't know. The first one wasn't necessarily a quote, but this one, I'm not going to quote it because I can't remember exactly how he said it. But he said, he is Mike. I shouldn't compare myself to AD. AD's in a different place than I am, and I may never get to his level. What I should compare myself to is me of yesterday.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
Right. And I said this today on his post, and one of your followers, Jackie Allen, I think she was in there, and we were talking, and the other part of that is, with social media, don't compare your everyday life to someone else's highlight reel. Yeah. Because we do that when we look at social media every day. We look at their best of, and we go, well, my stuff isn't as good as that. Well, you're not making an apples to apples comparison. Because I shoot a lot of junk you guys never see. That's just the way it is. Because that's my practice stuff. So,
all right, let's move on to number 9.
Yeah.
And this one's by Michael. Great name. Let me see. Domingo. Okay. Again, I'm not going to get the names right.
Yeah, I'm not Demagal or something like that. I'm not sure. Awesome photo. Very cool. I love the effects on it. I like the kind of soft focus on the edges. Not a big fan of selective color. I will throw that one right at you right off the bat. A lot of times selective color is like almost trying to compensate for something else in the image. I don't think that's needed here. I think that you probably could have gotten away with a black and white of this image in high contrast would have had more impact, I think. I understand the copper of that part of it. And if that's the case, then maybe some creative processing with leaving the stone natural and then doing something with the coloring behind her or the composition to kind of remove the trees in the back. If that was I'm sure that's probably why you went this route, is because the trees were green that didn't go with the green of the patinaed copper. But a very strikingly haunting image, a little soft and dreamy to scare me. It doesn't quite, like, this image could be really scary with the right processing, I think, and the right color palette. And part of that thing, maybe we have a winner. I don't know if we're going to announce this yet or not, but the Lightroom preset pack that we're talking about giving away, just re-mention that a little bit. I have a preset in there called High Tension Fade Out that would make this image scare you. I mean, it's just in the tones.
I say, I know that the live viewers here on Facebook didn't hear that intro that I was talking about, but every month we're going to pick at random somebody who's going to win something from AD store that jpeg2RAW is going to buy. And I say Michael's the winner. And it is the preset, the Lightroom preset that we're doing this month. So we'll just go ahead and do that now.
There you go. And so the thing that's cool about the preset thing is it's not designed for you to, a lot of people get presets wrong. They think, well, I'm not going to use presets. I don't like presets. It's like Instagram. Here's what I've used presets for. I never click on a preset and go, yep, that's what I wanted. I click on it and it gives me ideas. It sparks that when I'm stumped at what to do, it gives me that kind of extra creative thing. So when you're using these presets, use it as kind of a launch point. Don't just click it and be like, yeah, that's exactly what I want. Or, wow, why would I use that preset? Think of it like as, a sparking point for creativity. So,
right. All right, let's move on to number 11. And this was by, I got to lean forward to see it, Monty Spears.
Monty Spears.
And the only thing I know about this one is that I think this was a senior shoot. So I'm assuming this is a high school senior and who is into crossbow.
Right. Yep, I'm getting that. And so we've got that part of the image, which makes a lot of sense to me. The eyes are in, technically, let's talk about that a little bit. And technically, the image is spot on, shot well. I'm not so sure I like the crossbow completely out of focus. I think I might have gone with a little stop down aperture a little bit here to get a little bit more of that in focus. Now, I could be wrong. Everybody in the world could know that that's a crossbow. I knew it was a crossbow, but I'm not so sure everyone would know that. I think they would know it was something that you shoot because of the scope, maybe. But that's kind of like one of those things where you'd have to try different things to see what you thought. Green cast on the blonde hair and on her nose. Definitely things that need to be addressed as far as that goes. That's happening from the leaves and the bounced light, whether she was in a shadow or something. I would definitely remove the green from her hair, unless that's the color of her hair. Now, I could be wrong there, but I'm pretty sure her nose wasn't green, and I'm seeing quite a bit on her chin of green. Now, the dirt, that's awesome, because I get that. That's, going for that, she's hunting and that sort of thing. That's cool. Also, some of the random reflections around the image that are bouncing off the crossbow itself. That's something that you got to really be aware of when you're shooting from your strobes, and try to minimize that as much as possible, whether that means changing the angle of your strobes or diffusing them more or using a grid or something that's going to relieve these big, bright spots, because all they do is really pull me away from those eyes. And that's where we want to be. We don't want to have anything in an image where we're doing a portrait. We really don't want to have anything pulling us away from those eyes. That's where we really want to be. So I think it's another 2+ image, but definitely address the green in the skin. And if her hair is supposed to be green, that's fine. If not, then you definitely want to make sure you pull down the HSL slider on set to green. Will pull that right out without damaging your other greens that are around here in Lightroom. It's really easy, simple to do. And other than that, though, very creative. And I love seeing senior shoots that do something different. If you're out there shooting senior photos, sit down with the kids and the parents and find out what makes their clock tick, and then shoot for that. Don't just do the typical thing, man.
I got to tell you, the senior shooters of today are so much better than they were when I was a senior.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And they're getting much more creative.
Absolutely.
I will admit one thing. When I first looked at this, I did not realize that was a crossbow. So I'm one of those guys, as I looked at it, okay, obviously I see it now, but I didn't notice it right at first. And I think that was because it was so out of focus. Yeah.
And so there's an arrow now that I look at it too on there. And I know this is tough to do, but if you're going to put an arrow on there, which the way I would probably shoot this is I would have the crossbow cocked without an arrow in it. So it's safe, okay? Because that's important. We can see that it's not cocked, but there's an arrow in it. And so, I'm with him. I don't want an arrow pointed at me from a crossbow.
Cocked. Yeah.
That's cocked, right? With a teenager holding it. I'm just saying. Nothing against teenagers, but things happen. So what I probably would have done here is I probably would have shot her holding the crossbow cocked without an arrow in it. And then I probably would have shot the arrow separate and then edited those two together so that it looked like it was on the crossbow. for realism. I think that if you're going to put an arrow on there and we're not going to see the point of the arrow and have all of that focus stacked and in focus, or using a wide enough aperture or a small enough aperture that we can see everything in focus, then I think it's kind of lost at that point. It doesn't have the impact as if I got a pointed arrow pointed at me and I can still see her in focus and see all of that. And so the way to accomplish that, by the way, I probably should answer this question, because if you're shooting this at, say, 2.8, and if you're shooting it at maybe even less than that, on an 85 millimeter, which is typical for any of your portrait guys out there. I used to use my 70-200, and I'll tell you, shooting portraits with 70-200 gives you the advantage of stepping way back from them, and that compresses the image, which would actually give you a wider focus plane, so you could get her and the crossbow and be at maybe a safe distance behind a tree to shoot, just basically something between you and that
arrow,
that deadly weapon, right? Yeah. If you wanted to shoot it with it cocked, but that would be moving it back and going with 200 millimeters or 300 millimeters so that you could squash the image and get some compression there, and move her away from the tree a little bit. That way you can still have the bokeh tree, or if you want, you'd have to play with those distances a little bit, but that would help you get more of the crossbow, so we knew exactly what was being aimed at us.
He might have wanted that tight up against the tree that, when you're hunting, maybe you're trying to be stealthy, and he might have been trying to get that little bit of a stealthy look to her. Yeah.
Well, and see here again, knowing the backstory and knowing what the guy was going for, and then we could help with some tips. I mean, I think everybody brings these images in. I hope to these critiques to get some tips. I hope we're not just looking for me to say every image is just wow, amazing, because I usually don't say that unless it absolutely is. So
no, I
guarantee that with me. So
I think with every image, no matter how good you get, I'm sure even yours, AD, that there's something that can be improved even in your best of images. Like, I could have done this either with the shot or with the editing, or both.
So on that point, last night in a critique, I told an apprentice this exact thing. We were talking about the 250,000 photos taken in my Lightroom catalog, and this is going to blow you away. I have one image that I love. One image out of all of that I have on my desktop, and I look at it every day, and every day I look at it, I don't want to take it down. And that, is just that's what it is. That's what we strive for, is to get more of those images. But out of 250,000, I have one that I love to look at.
Well, I'm sure there's tons that you have that I would love to look at. But that drive, that thought of I can improve on everything I've done,
absolutely,
is what makes people better. All right.
Always. And I'm always striving to hear that on my work as well. So, yeah. All
right, let's move on to number 11 here. And this is by Peter Hines, I think is the name.
Yeah, Peter Hines. All right. So we have another tulip, it looks like. This looks like it might have been done in a studio or done with a high contrast black and white filter. And I like this image. I'm going to be quick on this one because it's a very simple image. And that part of it is boom. Love it. Very simple. Look at Alan Shapiro. He's from New York City. Amazing flower photographer. Does these simple flowers just like this. He's a huge inspiration. You can find inspiration in his images for everything else, not just his flower photography. But it's, again, we're going for the flower symmetry, right? And it's a little leaning off to the left. And so straighten it up, get it nice in the frame so it's balanced, so that we're not distracted by that slight tilt. You've made this beautiful image. Let the simplicity of the image, minimalism. That means we're not trying to angle it. A lot of, the old way of getting drama out of a shot was to angle a shot, was to turn it. And we have this kind of built into us. Whenever we see anything leaning, we get tense. We have that feeling we're falling over.
Yeah.
That, we're upright, right? So the flower that we're looking at should be upright. And we get that feeling it's growing up to the sky and is upright. So I would just, this is a definite 2.8, way up there. Good processing, lovely color, lovely light. Just straighten it up and balance it out, and you've got perfect.
And that should be an easy crop fix.
Super easy. Yeah, super easy. Yeah, well done image. I really like the softness and simplicity rules, man. Love it.
All right, let's move on to number 4, and this is
Sure.
by Sasha. I'm just going to go with that, Sasha. I can't do the last name. Sorry.
Sadazvian.
There you go. And I'll let the last name in this show. I'll let you do all by yourself.
Great.
All right, this is, I guess, 2 cookies or something.
Yes, Sashi, I'm hungry now.
Yeah.
Thanks. This is an interesting image. So this is a perfect example of where I need context, where I need what we're going for. Is this a product shot for a bakery? Is this for a magazine? Is it for fun? Are we testing light? Are we playing with, different type of compositions, that sort of thing? I like the 3 elements here. That's done really well on the black background's good. Probably would have liked to have seen the shadows look great. Here's my thought on that. You're using light in this situation to create these beautiful long shadows. Why aren't we giving them some space to work? So why not move the cookies a little bit more to the left and turn them just slightly, and then give us those shadows off into the dark a little bit more. That makes it more of a fine art style image, I think. If that's the case, that's what I would suggest. I think the slight off angle of the cutting board too is a little disconcerting because it makes the image feel like it's tilted.
I was going to ask you that. I look at this and I feel like I'm tilted.
Yeah, and it's just, probably when they were getting ready to shoot this shot, they were trying different things with different angles, and just a slight movement to the left would, you'd have it all lined up, and then you move to the left and boom, you've got these cross hatch lines going in. And this is just a case of, if it's a cutting board, move the cutting board with the cookies on it. Don't move yourself, so that you get your light and everything stays the same. We're just changing the light and changing the composition by keeping on that plane. I think it's a great image.
I know food photography can be tough, and in this case, she had the white filling, which is easy to blow out, and they didn't do that here. It looks like I got detail in the white, which is I do like
so
that.
This is kind of what I call dramatic strobing, which is a lot of times when we're working in the studio, we'll work with one strobe if we want to lend some drama to the portrait or whatever we're shooting. We give it, one directional light from one area, and that gives these dramatic shadows. And in this case, we have dramatic shadows. They're not being utilized in the composition, which I think is a strong point that you could use those. But all the way around, everything else, the blown out areas and the frosting, there's none of that going on. So technically, getting the shot, I'm seeing wonderful technical shots. Everybody that's submitted is definitely the shots are very technically well done. It just comes down again to practicing different compositions and getting the power of that story across.
Yep. So, all right, let's move on to the next one. This is number 13, our second to last one, and this is from Thomas Sadlin. And I'll give a little back story on Thomas. Thomas entered our photo contest last year, the Best of 2015 contest. And after that, he and I started talking, and I started doing a little, discussions with him. Him and I were talking, and he just got his first DSLR, so he is moving, and he has actually made a lot of progress from when he first started shooting, where he was way underexposing and a lot of beginner issues, but he's making good progress along the way. And
absolutely.
I think this is his first entry into a normal monthly contest of ours.
Great. Well, congratulations, Thomas. You're doing a great job, and just keep practicing. You definitely go watch the John Free videos. He's very inspiring, especially for photographers who are eager to learn, and he's very inspirational too. And he's a street photographer, so he knows his stuff. I just have a few tips for Thomas here on this particular image. It goes back to some other images. Move your subject. You have a beautiful giant fireplace. You brought them out in front of this fireplace to get this portrait. Why not give the fireplace a little space in the shot to kind of show where they're at? Moving them to the left here, with them moved off to the side with a little bit of that negative space here is going to really make the portrait itself more powerful. So it gives them like a context of, remember that big fireplace we were standing in front of when we had our anniversary, or maybe this is his mom and dad or something, whatever the special event was. That'll help that recall value for them and give them that kind of more open area. Anybody who shoots with anything other than a gray background, by the way, in a studio, if you're going to go out and spend the time to get like a nice location, use it. Use it in your composition. Give it some space. Give them some space. I think it's a little front focused, just a little bit. So Thomas, when you're shooting something like this, you're going to have to really focus on getting the eyes right in focus. It's focused a little bit on this lapel here, which is a little forward from his eyes. You probably would want to shoot something like this at 5.6, just so you have, anytime I have 2 or 3 people in a shot, I generally start at 5.6. And I'll be between 5.6 and 8 sometimes, depending on how much of them I need to be in focus and how, it's sometimes on you to make sure that their heads are kind of on the same plane so that you can get all their eyes in real tight focus. And they're a little dark in the eyes. So in your post process a little bit, I probably would lighten this up just a little bit. I'm not sure. This looks like it probably was natural light. I don't know if there's any strobing going on.
I think it's natural. I don't see anything in the eyes which would make me think there was a strobe.
Yeah, if you were using a strobe, dude, great job on not getting this. I see a lot of people have to remove flash from glasses. Glasses are very difficult, and there's some tips and tricks out there too on the net on how to shoot with a strobe and keep those flashes out of the eyes. But this just looks like it was an overhead light here, and so in that case, maybe a little fill light from below with a strobe helps. Very light helps relieve some of the shadows that you're seeing here. Just something you want to be very careful with. So you don't want to make everybody look tired, which is what that does for folks. So
right. But, one thing I want to ask you here. So we did have the other person shot, which was the senior, but this is more of a portrait shot than I guess maybe the other one was too. But there are some certain cropping rules when you're shooting people. I think you actually did okay here. But can you just briefly give us? What are those rules when you're cutting people off? Because you're not showing the full body.
Right. Well, I think this is more of a headshot type setup. So I think that, in that respect, he did a nice job with that. I don't think that you need to, unless they wanted a full body shot here. If we're just talking about a headshot, this is, well cropped. It's a little, so it's one of these things like symmetry and abstract. There's no such thing as a little abstract, and there's no such thing as a little symmetrical. So when you're doing your crops, there's also no such thing as like a little composition. In this case, he's got a lot of space over on this side and a little space over on this side. So I'd probably, I'd actually probably bring this up a little bit from the bottom, try to even that out a little bit. I don't think I'd take any more off the top. These folks are probably going to want to frame this as a great photo, and you're going to, they're going to have to mat it, which means that they've got to have that, 1/4 of an inch all the way around to make sure that they can do that. So no, I think he did a fine job. If he wants to tell a little bit more powerful of a story, then you move him to the side a little bit. But as a headshot goes, just as a nice moment, if he's just, taking a nice matter-of-fact headshot photo, he did a great job here.
Great. All right, let's move on to the last one.
Yeah.
And this one, I'm not even going to try and say the name. I have no idea. Sorry.
Well, on mine, I have Make Contest Preview. That's what I got. So I don't even have a name. That's unfortunate.
Yeah. For whatever reason, mine has the name. Sorry.
Gotcha. Well, for a non-focus stacked image, this is awesome. It's done very, the focus point on this with the water and the little, I'm not sure. I never can remember what they're called in the center of the flower. But anyway, that part is all in focus, and that's really where the story is at on this image. You have a nice framing around this with all of the green for a backdrop, but we do have our subject again. Our portrait is right dead in the center. And this could work if it was in a portrait mode and the flower was a little lower, and we had more green up top. That would put it in the lower thirds. But for this, it's just, you've given kind of this, when you give a target in the middle of the photo frame, what happens is you have too much conflicting stuff going on around the image, and you're almost like saying, you've got to look at this. But as humans, we're like, what's all this other stuff? Because it's all around it. It's like surrounding it. Yeah. And when we just give one opposing space to our subject, then that ends up giving us a direction to look at, and then we follow that and stay there. We keep coming back to the same thing. So there's, you've got some buds here on the bottom. They're kind of a little bit of distraction going on. Easily, these are like these two right here are actually okay, but this little bit right here, and I'm saying like you can see what I'm doing. Sorry. The two that are next to the stem, below the flower, those are fine with the little drops. I think they're fine. The dew underneath there is great. But the next one over to the left, that little round bit to the left, and then the bit larger bud in the lower corner. I want to talk a little bit about that. You can easily clone out the little one. The big one, here's the thing. Whenever you're taking a shot, always pay attention to triangles in your corners. And when I say triangles in your corners, I mean triangles that have contrast to them. So a triangle isn't a triangle unless we can see it. And that usually happens from the contrast. What happens when we have triangles in the corners is our eyes just go there. So this bud in the corner is, again, pulling us away from the image. I think that this image would work great if you put it in a square crop and got rid of this little guy right here, this little round one that's next to the two that are in the center, and did a square crop with this. I think you've got a great image. But get rid of the ones that are off to the left there. That's kind of, they're kind of just hanging out there.
All right. Well, AD, thank you very much. That was a great review. It went a little bit longer than I was hoping, but I appreciate your time and sharing this with us. Some great feedback. And we're going to hopefully do this once a month. We're going to put this out as a regular show. I know that Facebook, there was something going on Facebook. And with the first part of the show, everybody missed the first 4, I think, images that we did. But I did record it. So we will put this out later. And if you want to enter our contest, there's 2 ways. Either our Facebook group, which is facebook.com. I think I have a lower third for that. Hold on a second.
Ooh.
Here we go.
Fancy.
Facebook.com/groups/jpeg2RAW. That is the easiest way to go and do it. Just join our group over there, or on our webpage, which is jpeg2raw.com. There is a photo entry form that you can go and do it from there. So if you're not going to join Facebook, either way, you can do that and join the monthly contest, and then we have a year-end contest where we do all the big prizes. There's not generally prizes during the month, although we're kind of doing them now. Yeah,
we'll figure something out.
All right, AD, thank you for coming. We're gonna go ahead and end this, and you got something to say?
Just one thing before we go.
Yep.
Mike's going to make it so that you can leave us a reason why you took the shot.
Yep.
And the reason for your processing or your composition. So we have a little bit of not like why you went to the location and that kind of stuff, but just what made you pull the trigger at this point in time, and then what did you do in post that kind of finished it off. If you give me those 2 things, then we're going to go quicker, and I'm guarantee you'll learn 10 times as much.
And that's the whole point of this. That's a good closer. That's the whole point of this, is for us to learn. Even if your images wasn't one of the 14 we went over tonight, just listening to AD and how he's giving tips on how the image can be improved is helpful for everybody. And that's the whole point of this.
Yep.
All right. Thanks, AD. Let me go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and stop the live stream. Good night, everybody.